You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 4/26/21. Well, we've had these massive run-ups in cryptocurrencies. Gold, silver, not so much. But are we reaching a point where gold and silver can only go up from this point? That's what I'd like to know, and that's what you'd like to know. My next guest is going to fill us in on that. In the meantime, tell me your opinion. Why don't you send an email? My personal address is kl@kerrylutz.com. Right now, our good friend Todd Bubba Horwitz is with us now, and you will find his website, Bubba, B-U-B-B-A, trading.com. Todd, it's great to have you back on the show, and I saw you just wrote an article for Kitco. I think it was last Wednesday, and you're pretty much calling for a large increase. Before we got on with that, we should give our prayers to Peter Hugg, who's a good friend at Kitco, passed on just a couple of days ago, and he was a good friend of the show. So we mourn his loss and our best wishes to his family. In any event, your article caught my attention, and I knew it was time to have you back on.
Well, yeah, and our condolences go to Peter. And, listen, markets move in mysterious ways, and they trend higher, they trend lower. And of course, depending on your horizon, your time frame, and what you're trying to do, we go back and forth, during shorter periods of time. And we had been short gold as traders. Now, I want to be clarified with everybody. I own physical gold, which I never anticipate selling. I own physical silver, and I own platinum. So I own them all, even if I'm writing negatively about them in the short term. As a trader, I still own them, and I'm never selling them. My kids will sell them when I drop. But in the meantime, from the gold appeared to have reached a bottom. Okay, and we saw a print into the 1600s before, and suddenly we came up and creeped back up to 1720, 1730, 1750, and then our trends, our models changed to being long. And when you look at the pattern, you can see the consolidation with a bias to the upside now, which leads me to believe that we're going a lot higher now. And look, I don't make big ridiculous projections, but certainly I would not be surprised to see them take a run at the highs. Of course, we'll have to get to 1800 and 1850 before we can go there. But I do think that you're setting up for a very big move. If you've watched some of the other products around, not necessarily gold related, or silver related, but you look at copper and palladium, they've been exploding higher. And I think that gold will start to move in that direction along with silver, because I think you found some reasonable levels, and it's going to start to attract new money, especially when you start having, President Biden talking about 43% potential corporate tax rates.
Yeah, that's for sure. You mentioned platinum, which has kind of become the redheaded stepchild of precious metals. It couldn't catch a bid over $1,000 for years. Now it's trading upwards of 1,200 plus. And is that the metal to be investing in, you think?
I think if you look at platinum, to me, it's on sale. I think it's got tremendous value, and if you look at their space of others that are like it, some of the more the industrial type metals as well. Look, I'm a buyer of them all, but I always buy right now platinum 2-to-1 over gold as an investor, and as long as we stay at these prices, I will continue to buy 2-to-1 because I actually believe it to be on sale at the levels that we're trading right now. So I want to be a buyer, but I'll buy them all. But if I'm gonna spend X in the market, 50% will go into platinum and 25 gold, 25 platinum for now. And again, that'll rotate like it always does. But overall, again, it just, to me right now, it's a much more of a value play. And when I'm investing versus trading, I'm looking for the value.
For sure. And yeah, it had just been in the dumps for so long and reversed multi-generational trends. Very rarely in the past had gold's price exceeded platinum's. And yet we went for 4 years where gold stayed above, and at one point it was 2-to-1 gold on platinum. It's pretty remarkable when you
100%.
think about it. Smaller market, much rarer, maybe less sought after as well, but maybe that much easier to manipulate too.
It is pretty thin. I will tell you that. But again, you just have to understand what you're dealing with and what your risk and exposure are, and certainly you'll find out that you have some great potential opportunities if you have the right time horizon and are using risk capital that you are not going to need tomorrow.
Yeah. So don't bet the ranch, in other words, right?
100%. Never bet the ranch on anything, because you just don't know. And you have to remember that, of course, human nature in itself can be very dangerous. So I think it's just better to put in what you can afford. And just as you open up the crypto space, and talked about that when you're opening, I think that's a big space too. But of course, it moves very quickly.
Right. So I'm glad you brought cryptos up. There's a lot of controversy. I mean, in 2017, December, I wrote an article saying we all know Bitcoin's going to infinity, but maybe it's a good time to sell half your Bitcoin because half of infinity is always better than a loss. And I was a little bit prescient there. It looks to me like we could be getting into that heady area now. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're probably right, Kerry. I think, look, as we look at the market, right, you've got a market that has exploded, and it went up, just over about 65,000. And of course, it was never going down again. And suddenly, we get this, a little bit of a smash. And certainly there's a lot more room for lower. I would suspect that you could see 30,000 and still be relatively bullish of the, I don't know what you call it, but the other type of currency, right? The alternative currency. And, look, there's going to be big moves here. You've got thin markets. They're not necessarily liquid. They do trade 24 hours a day, or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but you don't really have the true access into markets yet. Now, I think, a big helper to Bitcoin into this space will be when the CME brings out their micro Bitcoin, that will create some more liquidity. And that's really what I think traders are looking for. And I think Coinbase now is, recognized as a public company. It could create some places now. So I think you've got opportunities, but again, that does not take away the major volatility of a newer space, a thinner space. I mean, think about it. The entire crypto space is smaller than Apple. So, you're going to have some wild swings. And as long as you can stomach the wild swings, which you're going to have to, which is why you only invest what you can afford, then you can have the duration or the standing to say, and I own some, I don't own a ton, but I always tell all of my members, look, if it goes out of business tomorrow and goes broke, I will not lose any sleep, I promise. And I think that's the type of idea you have to have when you invest in that space, knowing that, look, it could be the biggest thing ever, but it's still going to have wild swings. I don't care how good it is.
So talking about allocation, I always view it as don't put more than 5% of your total assets in there. In light of its recent performance, can you go higher?
I don't think I would not. Look, again, I think you're in a dangerous area. I'm a believer. Okay. And believe me, this is, the crypto space, okay, is the currency of libertarians. And it's only getting bigger. And again, it's real big in some of the more, government-controlled countries, okay, which is really what propels and drives this. But I don't know, that I want to start going more than 5% of anything, especially something that is not regulated yet. And I don't want regulations, but I want to have guaranteed exchanges that are backing it, which is one of the reasons that I try to stay in those spaces. And but 5% I think is plenty. But remember, 5% of something that could go to Pluto, which I think has every intention to do so, is a lot of money. And I think that's what you got to remember is, what your overall investment goal is across the board and what is your risk tolerance and where will you be? It's easy to leverage yourself and have more in when it's going in your favor, but how do you react when it doesn't? That's always a problem.
Yeah, like real estate never goes down, like the stock market always goes up. All these little maxims that have proven to be totally false through bitter experience of many of you out there. So the question is, the one trader cycle person told me the beauty of Bitcoin is it only trades on emotions. It doesn't trade. There's no fundamentals to be concerned about. It's strictly the emotional mindset of the trading community out there. So how do you find entry points? How do you find exit points?
Well, that's a good question, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Now, again, if you're a believer in a chart, and if you're a believer in true and real price discovery, which is, listen, no market can move without a buyer and a seller. Okay. I mean, so if you believe that, then it doesn't really matter, does it? It's the chart will give you indications of where the market is either finding resistance or where the market is finding support. And that will give you an idea of when to buy or when to sell. And if you're willing to pay attention to that and honor that method or that system, I mean, my trend trading algorithms were long Bitcoin for a long time, and they just recently turned short. So, again, at the end of the day, it trades like any other market. It does drive an emotion more than anything else because of what it is. But, it is a investment vehicle that is priced by price discovery. It has to be a buyer and a seller. You have to meet to exchange well. So it's going to trade like anything else, which is why all charts are the same when it comes down to it.
And I love what you said about libertarians, because we've always wanted a competing currency to whatever it is, whether it's the dollar, the yen, the ruble, the euro.
We don't want the crooked fiat currency system. That's what we don't want. Let's be frank. That we don't want the ability for some outside party like the central banks or the Federal Reserve to steal my money right from my pocket by devaluing my own currency and giving away ridiculous stimulus packages. Okay, let's put it as it is. At least that's how I believe it to be.
Agreed, for sure. And if fiat currencies are so great, they should welcome the competition because they'll prove in the end that they're superior. But, as I once saw a bumper sticker on a car, it said, "Don't steal, the government hates competition."
A very good bumper sticker, if I do say so myself.
So really, when you look at it, they are great, but eventually the threat will be recognized, if it hasn't been already, to the central banks. They're going to want to do something. What do you think of the digital yuan there? Is that a response?
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Goldterra Resource Corp is a gold exploration company that has assembled a highly prospective district-scale land position on the doorstep of the city of Yellowknife in Canada's Northwest Territories. Goldterra is currently focused on expanding and delineating gold resources at the company's Yellowknife City Gold Project with a goal of discovering over 5 million ounces. With ready access to infrastructure and multiple high-grade gold discoveries, Goldterra is on track to reestablishing Yellowknife as one of the premier gold mining districts in Canada. Goldterra trades as YGT in Toronto and YGTFF on the OTC. For more information, go to goldterracorp.com. That's goldterracorp.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
I do think that they've already mentioned, you've heard, Christine Lagarde talk about it a little bit. You've heard, Yellen speak a little about it. If it gets too big, which it's getting there, right? It goes up and down, obviously, but it was over $2 billion for a while, after only being at 800 million. So I think that, you get 200 billion, but you get to a point where, it will, when the government gets a big area of trouble, when they feel a big area of trouble, they will step in. And I think that, the 1.8, right, as of right now, the market cap of all crypto is 1.8 trillion. Okay. So as we look forward, they're going to start to try to eliminate it, but I don't see how they can stop it. That is the beauty of Bitcoin. Okay. Is I don't see how the governments can stop it. Okay. And that's where I think the difference is, because it is private. The transactions are private, except if you're using a Coinbase, who gives you a 1099 at the end of the year. But overall, the space itself is private. And, if you wanted to take a large sum of money with you from somewhere to another place, you think you can pick up a couple of suitcases of gold and take it with you? Probably not. So the only way to do that is through, the digital type currency.
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree. The transportability is one of the biggest things. But recently we saw 2 crypto exchanges go bust. Yep. In Turkey, and they were getting very popular there because of the volatility of the Turkish lira, and these guys basically bolted, one with 2 billion, and I don't know what the other one stole. There's still issues to be worked out here, like you said, regulatory issues of security, internet security. Some guy wrote me a thing recently. He was doing a transfer on his Bitcoin of 50,000, and it never went to where it was supposed to go. And then he looked at the transaction. He didn't recognize the key that was there at all. And somebody hacked him, obviously, and that's what happened. And that's a legitimate concern with this.
Oh, I think it's 100%. Listen, that's why I want to see, I don't want the Bitcoin, I don't want the cryptos regulated, but I want an exchange like the CME, for example, to stand behind the trades that are made there. I can live with that. And then to me, it becomes a much more viable product if you can get some ETFs on it. And I think you're going to see some ETFs, because I think what happens is even though the government is trying to fight it on one hand, on the other hand, they see the potential to charge more for fees on trading, and you bring in, new tax revenues from having these ETFs that are now, Bitcoin or, Ethereum, and, name it, or a basket, there's a lot of good things that come. But again, the biggest thing about having a regulated exchange behind your products is that somebody's responsible for your money if it doesn't get where it's supposed to get, and it doesn't get stolen. So that, to me, that's just always a concern, which is another reason why I don't have an enormous amount of money in the crypto space, because I want to make sure it's still there.
Yes, Coinbase has some type of guarantee or insurance or something, I believe, on their thing. I mean, that's conceivably it could be one of the most guarded computer systems on the planet. Coinbase, it's worth $100 billion now, and they're holding God only knows how much. I guess they're going to have to tell us that how much crypto they're holding for the world.
They might. I don't know how. I don't know. They're all the regulations and rules of what they have to do. They might have to say what the cash value of their holdings. We'll see. We'll see how it goes, right? Because there also is cash in those accounts too.
Very true. And they're reporting to the government, like you said, 1099ing their people. But the Biden tax plan called for an 80% windfall profits tax on cryptos. So that tells you, that kind of gives you a little peek under the tent of what they are thinking.
100%. That is the issue that will stand in play, and that is where you might start to see some selling pressure. But again, I think that, you're dealing in this country now with the very real possibility of another revolution. So, when you look at these different things and, you get more control and you start losing more of your own assets, that does create the potential. And, this is just another step of the government trying to control everything while they destroy the average middle class. And obviously not a good thing. And
that is one thing that the government's been very effective at, is destroying the middle class, right?
100. Yeah. I mean, they continue to, force you to, your dollars are worth less. Everything you have becomes worth less with what they're doing. And, they have no shame. They continue to basically reach into your pocket at every stimulus package. Every time the Fed opens their mouth, okay, they are taking money from your pocket. It's the same thing as their continued claim of no inflation in the system. Okay, we can't reach our target. Well, yeah, if you keep adding to the money supply and you keep stripping down the average person's money, you're not going to have inflation, because you're making the dollars worth so much less, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. It's really kind of frightening when you think about what's happening here, but that's why you have to. Got to do something about it now. You can't wait around hoping that things are going to get better, because hope is not a sound investment strategy, right?
Hope is not a strategy at all. Hope is very dangerous. Okay, because when you hope, you usually end up in a bad situation, or you were in a bad situation to begin with, and of course that's why. Everything you have to do has to be done with sound practices and preparation, and understand what you're doing, and also using the right amount of risk.
Yeah. We all need to be better risk managers than we have been recently. That's for sure. And it's hard because people don't perceive risk, because the market has been so good and so successful, right? I mean, they just don't get it anymore.
Well, they like everything else, when it's going in your favor, you forget about the leverage you have on, you forget about what's going on, and you allow yourself to get caught up in a market when, of course, we all know that, the markets, yes, over history, they go up 8%, 8.5% year over year forever. However, in any given period, they can break you if you're too far invested, okay, or they're going to trigger a very bad emotional response from you. So if you're gonna allow that to happen, well, you've really created your own problem, okay, by allowing that to happen. And that's always the story that we hear over and over again, right? People get over leveraged. And then, of course, the markets move diversely to which way they own it. They panic, they puke out, and suddenly it's right back to where it was supposed to be. But they couldn't take the pressure of the move to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. And that's called squeezing out the weak holders, right?
That's always that's the weak hands and strong hands. And they always manage to squeeze out the weak because, of course, the weak is always too far, too deeply, too much of their own capital invested, which creates the overall risk and panic of them and forces them to exit position, even though it might be the right position, but they're just too big for what they own.
Yeah, there's a certain inevitability to that too, isn't there?
And I think it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? We see it happen all the time. I mean, I watch it and I warn against it on a regular basis. If you're over leveraging, it's only good when you're right. When you're wrong, it becomes a disaster. But we see it all day. Listen, we've seen it for since before Tulip Mania. And we'll see it, in the next 1,000 years. I mean, that's not going to change as long as, we're under a market system. People are going to panic.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Well, the place to go, just tell us bubbatrading.com. That's the best place to find you, Todd?
Yeah, always that, or email me at bubbatrading.com. Always happy to hear from people and, answer questions that they have. And, we love to help educate and, continue to help the average investor. All
right. And if you have a question for Todd or myself, please feel free to email us. The address is kl@kerrylutz.com. Make sure you sign up for our free newsletter. Got one coming out shortly. And Todd, always a pleasure. Good luck. And we will talk with you again real soon.
Thanks, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.